Hey, what is going on guys? RZ Stealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of the item changes that are supposed to be coming in the next few patches, and we're going to go over the changes and take a look at which champions will be getting stronger with the changes. So first up here, we're going to take a look at the Essence Reaver changes. Now, I think that these changes have the potential to be some of the most impactful changes if these do go to live servers. What's getting changed on Essence Reaver is only the passive. That's the only thing getting changed, and it's now going to work so that if you deal 30% of the enemy's health over 2.5 seconds, you are going to proc the Essence Flare instead of using your ultimate. So you're no longer going to have to use your ultimate to proc the passive. It's going to be off of dealing damage. So what this means is that bruiser champions that are already using this item in this patch right now should get even better with this. So champions like Jax, Riven, Renekton, Lucian, because these champions, they don't want to have to be using their ultimate to proc the Essence Flare, and they're champions that can deal 30% of the enemy's health over 2.5 seconds pretty easily. So I just see this item being even stronger on them now, and it's going to be an even better pickup if this does go to live. Now with the changes here, because you're not reliant on the ultimate, it also opens things up for a lot more champions to potentially use it. So picks like Pantheon, Jace, Aatrox, Nasus, Master Yi, I can see it being really good on Quinn as well. A lot of different champions now have the potential to take this, and it can be a very strong item on them. And I think that with this change, it's going to be more worthwhile, maybe not as a rush item or even as like a second or third item, but later on into the game on picks like Kog'Maw, Sivir, Xayah, Kai'Sa, these champions that weren't the best with it before because the way that they procced it with the ultimate didn't really synergize very well with them. But I think that this could be much better on someone like the Kog'Maw in the late game. Just having the full uptime on his W would be very strong. So next up here are going to be changes to Infinity Edge. Now this change here is basically a whole new Infinity Edge. What it is, it's going to cost you 5,000 gold, so it's 1.6k gold more than a normal Infinity Edge. You're going to get 10 more AD than a normal Infinity Edge, 30% attack speed, 5% move speed. You're going to be losing the true damage, so they're taking that off, but you're going to have a new passive to where it increases crit by 50%, and it's also going to increase crit damage as well. So what this means here is that I really don't see this item being bought a ton, because the fact you need 5,000 gold means you're not going to be picking it up until around like the 20-25 minute point in the game, maybe even longer than that. And it means that especially if you fall behind in the early game on an AD carry, and it's just going to take you so long to get this item. So I'm not too sure if it's going to be worth it. The components are also really bad. The fact that you have to get 2 BF swords means that your spikes are going to be very weak in the early game. If you're basing on like 1.1k gold and you don't have enough for the BF sword, your power spikes are just going to feel very bad. So I just don't think this is going to be bought a ton. It could be bought on someone like Yasuo as his one rush item, because it does have pretty much everything that Yasuo does want, but it does leave your early game pretty weak, and for that fact, I don't think it's going to be bought a ton. And then the other Infinity Edge here is pretty much going to be the Infinity Edge that was in the game before the crit items ended up getting reworked. So you're now just going to have that 40% crit on the item. You're going to have the passive back to where it's going to increase your crit damage by a certain amount, but you're no longer going to have the true damage, and you're no longer going to have the double crit, or the Infinity Edge is no longer going to double your crit. So what this means here is that it's a much better rush item now. Certain AD carries before that like to go for something like the Zeal into Infinity Edge is going to be a lot better of a build path now if this does go to live. Champions like Caitlyn, Xayah, Sivir, Jhin, Tristana, these AD carries that right now aren't super good, especially like Xayah, Tristana, I think they're going to get much stronger if these changes do go to live, because they're AD carries that could go for something like a Zeal into Infinity Edge and then finish their Zeal item into like a rapid fire cannon, get another Zeal item, and that 3 item spike just felt really nice before on AD carry. So the fact that it is coming back, I do think is going to make some of these AD carries a lot stronger. Some picks in other roles as well, like Yasuo, Gangplank especially, is going to be really liking these changes because he's going to be able to go back to Crit Plank if he wants to. Tryndamere, Master Yi, it's just going to open things up a lot more for other champions to be taking this item, and because the crit is back in there, you're now going to be able to rush the item again, so you might see some AD carries stop building Stormrazor as their first item and just go back to the Zeal into Infinity Edge, and that should be a pretty good build if this does go to live. Now, Phantom Dancer, these changes here are probably going to benefit AD carries the most out of all the changes here. What they're doing is they're adding on 20 AD to the item, they're decreasing the crit by 15%, they're increasing the gold by 100, they're removing the passives on the item to where you take 12% less damage on the last target you hit, and they're also removing unit collision as well as the 7% movement speed towards close targets. What they're doing to compensate for that though is they're adding a 280 damage shield. Now this is not like a magic shield, this is just a shield, so it's going to block any kind of damage, and you're also going to get a 40% move speed buff if you do fall below 30% HP. So what these changes to PD mean is that on dueling champions, I do think the item does get weaker, especially on a champion like Yasuo, because the fact you're losing the crit there, you're also losing the damage reduction and the unit collision along with the movement speed. I just don't think it's worth it for the shield. When you're playing a champion like Yasuo, I do think that 12% damage reduction is going to be more useful when you're dueling than the shield is, but on AD carry picks, I do think this item does get quite a bit stronger. So if you're playing an AD carry into a heavy dive composition, I think this is where the item is going to come in and be a really good pickup as probably your second or third item. If you're going up against someone like a Kha'Zix and Aurelia that just wants to get onto you and burst you out, the fact you're going to get the shield along with the movement speed means that it's going to be a lot easier for you to kite out those dive champions in team fights, and your survivability is just going to increase by a lot. So I do think that overall this item is going to be great on AD carries if it does go live. So Hexdrinker here is getting some very interesting changes. They're completely removing the magic resist and they are adding stopwatch into the build path. Now what this is going to mean is that I just don't think this item is going to be a good rush item that you're going to want to sit on anymore. The fact you're completely removing the magic resist from the item now just makes it a pretty weak rush item, and I just don't see you picking this item up unless you're going to be building it into a Phantom Dancer. So on someone like the Yasuo, if he does end up going PD, if you're up against an AP mid laner along with an AP jungler, you might go for the Hexdrinker rush, but even then I just think the Zeal rush would be better. So overall, I just think that this is going to be a buff for AP mid laners because I just don't see this item being worth it as a rush item that you're going to be sitting on anymore. So for Rapid Fire Cannon here, what they're doing is they're decreasing the crit by 5%, they're increasing the movement speed by 5%, and the damage on hit is being changed from 60 to 140 just to a flat 80. So you're losing out on damage there on the on hit damage later on into the game. If you're picking this up as like a rush item or very early on, then you are going to have a bit more damage there. But overall, I just don't think these changes really matter too much. The item is still going to be a pretty strong item, and champions that were building it in previous patches are still most likely going to build it in the next patch as well. So for Static Shiv here, what they're doing is they're adding on 15% attack speed, they're decreasing the crit by 5%, and the damage on hit, it's being changed the same as how Rapid Fire Cannon was changed. So what this means here is that I think this is going to be a really nice buff to Tryndamere. Tryndamere, especially with the Tiamat nerfs that we saw in this patch here, would really like these changes. I think Static Shiv as a rush item on Tryndamere would be a lot better now if these do go through. This could also be a decent item on Yasuo situationally instead of the Phantom Dancer. With the Phantom Dancer changes, I just don't think it's going to be as good on Yasuo anymore. So something like a Static Shiv here, getting that 15% extra attack speed would be really nice on Yasuo, and it would allow him to also have a little bit more team fight presence as well there because of the Static Shiv passive. And then this is just going to be the higher DPS option over the Rapid Fire Cannon. So if you are snowballing in the early game, if you just want more damage, then this is going to be the better option. Stormrazor changes, they're changing the passive on the item to how it's going to be on Rapid Fire Cannon and on Shiv. It's going to deal 80 magic damage after being energized, and the energized damage is going to scale with 30% of your AD. So I actually don't really like these changes here. This would end up being a nerf to Jhin because the fact that you're no longer going to be getting the crit there does not synergize as well with Jhin. Jhin really did like the fact that he did get the crit from Stormrazor. The item should still be a solid rush item though, but I'm just not too sure if it's going to be worth it or if AD carries are going to go back to something like IE and 2 Zeal items. On AD carries that do want a 1 item spike, it is still going to be a pretty good item, so I think a champion like Draven would still pick this up early on into the game, but I do think that a lot of other AD carries are probably going to end up shying away from this item as a rush item and go back to 2 Zeal and Infinity Edge as their core build. And then the other version of Stormrazor here is going to have a different passive to where every 10 seconds you're going to gain a charge of Storm's Edge, and you can store up to 3 charges, and when you do auto attack a champion, you're going to deal 30 to 80 magic damage, and it's going to give you 40% move speed for 0.5 seconds. So this does mean that if you're picking this up as a rush, you are going to deal a little bit more damage in an all-in in the early game. It's only going to have like 10 extra damage there because the other Stormrazor has 80 magic damage on hit and this one has 30 in the early game, so it's not going to be that much more damage there. And I think that if you are playing in an aggro lane, this could be a good item, so on someone like Draven, but I think that for most AD carries, the other Stormrazor option is going to be the one that you'd want to go for because it also does have the AD scaling on it, whereas this version does not have an AD scaling on the magic damage. And then changes to Maw here are also kind of disappointing. What they're doing is they're decreasing the magic resist by 10, increasing the AD by 10, and that's the only changes they're making here to the item. So Maw is an item right now in this patch that you barely see picked up on any champion at all. Usually people just sit on Hexdrinker, and I think that this item is going to be bought even less in next patch because I feel like less champions now will be going for Hexdrinker early on into the game. So I just don't see this item really having an impact on too many champions. It's just still going to be a very niche item. And then lastly here, Last Whisper is getting 2 different changes. The AD is being increased from 10 up to 20, the armor pen from 10% up to 20%, so they're basically just increasing the effectiveness of Last Whisper by 50%, and this is going to be really nice for pretty much any AD champion. If the enemy team comp is stacking a lot of armor in the mid game, it's going to be a much better pickup now as just a mid game item to sit on the item there in the mid game if the enemy team is stacking armor, and it's just overall a very nice buff to AD carry champions. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. Lots of really nice changes to AD carries coming in the next few patches here. I think that pretty much overall it is going to buff all AD carries, but the AD carries that are sitting at the bottom right now, like your Xayah, your Tristana, these traditional crit AD carries are going to be the ones that benefit the most from these changes, and they should be getting a lot stronger in the coming patches. So with that being said, guys, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.